Good morning from Kilgore, Texas. This is Dr. Jill Powers, and what I'm going to do for you today is read part of an essay, or I should say conference paper that I wrote. I'm saying part of because I will break this into two parts. It is way too long to do a single reading of this, but I will try to put a link in. But you can always find me on LinkedIn, and you can read this work or many others in their entirety that I have placed on LinkedIn. I would not suggest that you think that you're going to use any of these for your own purpose, because some of them are published and some of them are not, and I'm not going to tell you which ones are or not. Okay, it's not anyone else's business. Anyway, this is To Be or Not to Be, Semiotics, Forbidden Love, and Candyman. In the 1991 film of Candyman, several urban legends combine to form its story base. Candyman is a ghost who terrorizes Chicago's Cabrini Green in retribution for his own murder. According to the film, the main character is Helen Lyle, changed from Helen Buchanan of Clive Barker's original 1986 short story, The Forbidden. Helen is a sociology graduate student who is writing a thesis entitled Graffiti, the Semiotics of Urban Despair. As Helen is investigating Chicago's Cabrini Green housing project, she looks for a central motif for this thesis, a spray-painted hell-mouth portrait of a legend, according to the residents of Cabrini Green. Candyman has brutally murdered several locals, including a boy in a public toilet there with a hook. The storyline of the film is comprised of several legends, plots, and motifs, including influences by the legend of Peter Abelard and Heloise, Shakespeare's Hamlet and Othello, and the well-known urban legends of the hook and the mutilated boy. Almost all of these stories share a central idea that the forbidden, especially forbidden love or sex, is punished severely, oftentimes by death or worse. Because Candyman's haunting began when a mob sawed off his artist's hand and stuffed his chest with the honeycomb of an angry swarm of bees, his tragic suffering and death lead to his legacy as a murderous ghost. Candyman haunts the south side of Chicago, both enticing and warning his victims of his story with the graffiti motto, "Sweets to the sweet." Helen is seduced first by the circulating urban legend of these local murders, then by Candyman's tragic story, and finally by the idea of being, which gets us into ontology of Candyman's victim lover. Candyman seduces Helen by enjoining her to be his victim. Yes, I know. Funny. Irony and satire is in play here, since her submission to his hook would not only seal their forbidden love in the most extreme of consummations, but also would allow her, like him, to be without being by immortalizing their tale of love as a new piece of his own urban legend. She becomes a sign within a flawless tragedy, the elegance of which structure is lost upon those suffering in it, the perfect geometry, as Barker describes his characters within the configuration of his short story. Helen's significance increases exponentially as one legend is layered multiply upon others. The film storyline does not correspond with Barker's short story at all, which leads me to the conclusion that the film's director, Bernard Rose, literally and figuratively gave Barker's story Stop it, Chewy. A romantic hook by grafting the tragic story of forbidden love onto Barker's thesis of Helen's encounter with the irate ghost of Spencer Street, who punishes Helen for her disbelief in him, like the hook as prosthetic. The Abelard Eloise story illustrates the semiotic connection between hook and artist's hand as sublimator of desires forbidden. Okay, he's not murdered by a hook in the Abelard Eloise story, but that comes into play whenever we see what happens when this black shoemaker's son, who's an artist, falls in love with his client that he has painted a portrait of, and they supposedly conceive a child, and which leads to his lynching. The central storyline of the film's Candyman most closely resembles an age-old story of forbidden love, that of the 40-plus-year-old Peter Abelard and the 18-year-old niece of Paris's canon Fulbert, Eloise. The underlying mythos of Candyman's demise is that he was an artist, the son of a former slave who was commissioned to paint a portrait of a wealthy patron's beautiful daughter. Candyman and this woman fall in love. Turn the page. And conceive a child, an act which is horribly punished with Candyman's lynching at the hands of an angry racist mob. The similarities of these stories are striking. It's perhaps the most tragic love story ever. Abelard and Eloise were two well-educated people, brought together by their passion, then separated by the act of her uncle's vengeance. Peter Abelard lived from 1079 through 1142. He was a French philosopher, considered one of the greatest thinkers of the 12th century. Eloise, who lived from 1101 through 1164, was the niece and pride of Canon Fulbert. She was well educated by her uncle in Paris. Abelard later writes in his Historica Calamitatum, say that 3 times fast, her uncle's love for her was equaled only by his desire that she should have the best education which he could possibly procure for her. Of no mean beauty, she stood out above all by reason of her abundant knowledge of letters. Really? Knowledge of letters. Legendary tragedy of Abelard and Eloise is a poignant example of forbidden love punished much too severely. Fulbert insisted that the couple marry, but Eloise was against the idea, as Abelard's brilliant teaching career would end if laws forbidding priests to marry pending then became reality. Abelard returned to Paris to bargain with his uncle, and later, after some unknown arrangement with Fulbert, sent for Eloise. Astrolabe, their child, was left to Abelard's sister, and the couple was married secretly at the Saint Julien de Pauvre church. The couple tried to keep their relation secret and went back to their respective lives as before. But Fulbert, it is thought, proud of his niece's relation to the world-famous professor, did little to hide Abelard's relations to his family. Abelard, probably fearing for his career, decided to return Eloise to her Argenteuil? Coventry. No, I'm not pronouncing that correctly. To become a nun, and he himself left the cloister for a teaching post at Saint Denis Cathedral. Upon his learning of this, Fulbert, mad with rage at the loss of his niece and family prestige, in the middle of the night sent 2 fellow canons in search of Abelard to castrate him. Most of this last passage happened in the year 1118, and by its end, Fulbert was decanonized. Yeah. This is something on the scale of what Robert Browning wrote about in The Ring and the Book, was such a thing happening between people trying to get together and being murdered for it. Okay. So, Abelard became a priest, Eloise a nun. From then, the couple maintained a rather aloof and chaste relationship, exchanging a correspondence that probably is the main reason that this story is still here to tell today, according to Mr. Schomburg. In the Candyman mythos, Candyman's artist's hand, rather than his penis, is amputated. And like Abelard, he is punished for his cupidity, but unlike Abelard, Candyman is also awarded by being without being, according to Bernard Rose, returning as an avenging ghost to reinforce the truth of his own tale. Candyman's storyline has much in common with the history legend. Consider Peter Abelard's own admission in his Historica Calamitatum. Violently incensed, they laid a plot against me, and one night, while I, all unsuspecting, was asleep in a secret room in my lodgings, they broke in with the help of one of my servants whom they had brought. There they had vengeance on me with the most cruel and most shameful punishment. Such as astounded the whole world, for they cut off those parts of my body with which I had done that which was the cause of their sorrow. Plot thickens. After Abelard's castration, Abelard did not die, but the 2 lovers